game here today. And, of course, the woman running the show for Carolina really is the woman in the post, Aaliyah Boston.
Sophomore captain, leader, also does a little bit of everything. She's such a tough matchup because South Carolina can move her around offensively. She controls the paint on both ends, leads the team in rebounds as well as shot blocks. She's dominant, can take over a game. But, Eric, the thing about Aaliyah Boston, she shows up in any category when her team needs her most.
Another double-double for Boston last time out in the win against Mizzou, 11 points, 12 boards. 6 of those boards were on the offensive glass, also had 4 blocks. And you see when she gets a double-double, odds are South Carolina is going to win. She also has 2 triple-doubles in her career. South Carolina 16-2 overall, coming off the win over Mizzou on Thursday, 77-62. That game was tied at halftime. LSU coming off an overtime loss at home to Florida on Thursday. It was their 4th overtime game this season, but their first loss in overtime. And Charlie Cream has his eye on this game. You talked about South Carolina trying to hold on tight to a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Well, LSU is into the field if they pull off a win over South Carolina today. We know there's still a few weeks to go in the season, but Selection Sunday is a month away. So this game vital for LSU. What an upset it would be and what it would mean for their tournament hopes. In the early rebound pulled down by Faustina Fua. Matchup a 6-5 post with Boston and Afua going head-to-head here today. And Pointer with a quick shot. You don't usually expect that from LSU, going quickly on the shot clock. She gets the game's first points.
Well, Nikki Fargas told us we want to run on misses. We're going to start off pushing tempo as long as we can. A lot of that will depend on matchups on the floor.
Saxton inside. Can't get it to go. You saw the starting 5 for South Carolina. Destiny Henderson at the point. That familiar starting 5. Different little look for LSU today as it's tipped out of bounds by Bree Bill. Awatrasi with 15 starts this season, not with the team, so she is out. So Nikki Fargas will be a little short-handed going up against the first-place team in the SEC.
Well, already, if you're an LSU fan, you're ecstatic. No paint points to this point in the game for South Carolina. They've taken a shot. LSU has boxed out well, and now they've been able to score easily in the half court.
We talked about Pointer running the show, being the conductor. She finds Spencer, who reverses it in 4-2. Spencer came off the bench against Florida, but getting the start here today with the absence of Trazi.
Well, and LSU wants to make South Carolina beat them from the outside. They do not want Boston to get the ball down low unless she travels, as we just saw. But paint points was a big issue in the first matchup, Eric. South Carolina outscored LSU 30-6, so it's a big point of emphasis for LSU today to protect the paint.
We'll take you back what happened in that first meeting in Baton Rouge that went down to the final minutes coming up in just a few minutes as the first couple of possessions for these two teams take place. And here's Pointer again, 27, her last time out, and her pocket is picked by Zaya Cook. Cook takes it all the way, and a blocking foul called on LSU, and that will send Zaya Cook to the free throw line as Jalen Cherry picks up the foul.
South Carolina is so dominant. We know how good and balanced they are at scoring the ball. We know how tough they are to score against. But where they are so dangerous is in the open floor. So long rebounds today on missed shots by LSU, as well as turnovers. This just feeds into the offensive flow for South Carolina.
First points for Zaya Cook, leading the team in scoring, 12th in the conference at 16 points a game. Pointer, Afua, defended by Saxton.
And there's something to pay attention to for LSU. In recent games, LSU had moved Trazi down low, and that allowed Afua to face up, where she's been getting a lot of her points. Eager to see how they balance that offense here this evening.
Are the keys too, Christy, for LSU, because defense is how they win games. This is a defense-first team, but they need to get back defensively against this dynamic South Carolina offense, especially when Carolina gets running off of misses and turnovers.
Well, and that time Zia Cook just takes it off the bounce, and there's no rotation to stop her. Great finish by Cook.
Spencer. Back out to Carly C. And now LSU will go to work with 7 on the shot clock. Pointer, tough take. Slow to get up, so numbers back the other way for Henderson and South Carolina.
And Eric, it goes beyond Pointer being on the floor. There were still 2 other pink uniforms behind the ball, and that's the bottom line. If you're going to defend and minimize South Carolina in transition, you've got to get at least 4 back. Someone's got to stop ball, or it's going to be a long evening for LSU.
Saxton gets called for the foul. So take us through some of the keys in this game today, Christy.
Well, in order to minimize South Carolina, you've got to stay even on the glass, both ends of the floor. And I think for LSU to score, they've got to be able to get some easy points. So score in transition, score off of misses or turnovers, and then they've got to, as we just saw, they've got to get back in transition defense and make South Carolina execute in the half court.
Fua. Pointer smothered by Boston, who gets the block. Cook again on the run. And last touched by LSU will be South Carolina basketball. LSU's going to have to fight on the boards better than they did Thursday in that loss to Florida. They were a -8 in rebounding margin against the Gators and cost Nikki Fargas's team a win at home. And this is a South Carolina team that dominates on the boards, and right now they're dominating on the scoreboard. An 8-0 run for South Carolina to go up by 4.
I'm always eager to see the adjustments coaches make when they play a team a second time, and I think that out-of-bounds execution was a prime example. Going against the 2-3 matchup zone of LSU, South Carolina knew where to get the ball for that open look.
Offensive rebound and a second chance here for LSU.
And Eric, where's the point production going to come from? The last couple of games, it's been Awa Taurazi, Faustina Fua, as well as Kayla Pointer. Someone else is going to have to step up here this afternoon for LSU.
Pointer launches a deep 3, batted around by Afua. Good fight on the boards here for LSU, but they just can't convert.
One credit Aaliyah Boston already with, and I'm not sure if they're going to give her a block on that last one, but at least a block, but she has altered 2 other shots.
Knocked away by Pointer. Good quick hands by a good 2-way player as she knocked it off of Boston. And it'll be LSU ball when we come back. LSU scored the first 4 points. They've run into trouble since then. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the 38th meeting all-time between LSU and South Carolina. Carolina's won the last 11, but the last meeting 3 weeks ago went down to the wire. South Carolina won by 4. LSU was up 6 in the third quarter, a 15-point swing into the fourth quarter with Carolina up by 9. Gamecock shot 62% in the fourth, 10 ties, 8 lead changes, 20 and 14 for Aaliyah Boston, and in the end, South Carolina had too much for LSU. It was a close one, 69-65 the final. So we fast forward to today, and South Carolina's on an 8-0 run as you take a look at what happened head-to-head in that first meeting, as LSU got plenty from their bench and down a starter here today. That depth's going to be tested, as we mentioned a moment ago, Christy.
Well, when you talk about bench, you have to talk about Lily Grissett for South Carolina. I thought, plain and simple, she was the difference maker in why South Carolina finally got the tempo and pace to where they wanted it. She leaked out in transition 3 out of 4 straight possessions, got layups, and from there it was ball game for South Carolina.
Lily averaging 7 points a game, had 9 points on 4 of 6 shooting, including her first career 3-pointer last time out against Mizzou. South Carolina 11-0 in the SEC. They've won 30 in a row against SEC opponents. That includes the postseason. Tennessee's got the all-time record of 36, so looking to keep it going in conference play. Rebounding is going to be a big factor here today. So far, LSU is a -1 in rebounding margin, but Dawn Staley's team has out-rebounded every opponent this year. They were +8 against Mizzou in that win.
When I asked Dawn, why is your team so good on the glass? She goes, when we take the shots that we're supposed to take and we know we're taking, we just crash like gangbusters. And so there is a method to the madness. It's not just athleticism and size. And I got to, again, LSU has to stay even or win the glass to have a chance on the road here this afternoon.
Well, they are even right now, Christy, and they have a 3-1 edge on the offensive glass, but they just haven't been able to turn it into second chance points. There is Grissett on the run. She can't finish, and off the miss, LSU wants to push. Here's Tiara Young, sophomore from Shreveport. Was very good in that first South Carolina game at 16 points, 6 rebounds. 7 of 13 from the floor.
And the other thing when Tiara Young comes on the floor, it allows Kayla Pointer to move over to the off guard, allows her to rest a little bit, but also get the ball back and get downhill sometimes off the dribble drive offense.
It's been a struggle for LSU. They made their first 2 field goals. They've missed their last 7, and now they've turned it over 3 times here in the first quarter. South Carolina was tied at halftime with Mizzou in their most recent game on Thursday. Mizzou shot 56% in the first half, but 27% in the second half as South Carolina turned up their defense.
And that's something for South Carolina. When you look throughout the season, they've been a little bit slow to start. I mean, big picture slow, and I'm using air quotes right now. Picked it up in the second half.
I saw your quote finger use. Good job.
All of America saw my air quotes. But it's definitely a point as we get closer to the NCAA tournament, start faster, be able to just kind of make that knockout punch early and then ride it out.
Well, every shot being challenged right now by that South Carolina defense, and the drought continues for Pointer and LSU.
And Pointer gets to the free throw line a lot, draws those fouls. So far, credit South Carolina. They've walled up and just contested every shot that Pointer's tried to attempt. And Eric, we're seeing this 2-3 matchup zone of LSU that morphs based on cutters, based on where the ball's passed to. And so far, they've been pretty good in the half court. The thing is, you got to finish off the possession with the rebound.
Boston with 4 points, Cook with 4 points. 10-0 run for South Carolina. Dominique Davis into the game. Another turnover for LSU.
Well, skip pass forces the zone to shift, and then you just don't get the rotation down on Aaliyah Boston. Easy rebound, just a little turnaround for the 2 points.
LSU has turned it over 3 times during their last 4 possessions. South Carolina with a 6-point lead. They've scored the last 10 points.
And look at this matchup. Pointer on Boston, out of the matchup zone.
Well, we know Kayla Pointer won't back down from that matchup, and we know Destiny Henderson won't back down when it comes to taking it to the basket. And a timeout's going to be called here by LSU as South Carolina has stretched it out to a 12-0 run.
Destiny Henderson is just so good off the bounce, and it starts because she just gives a little ball fake, which makes the defender bite. She has this clear path to the rim for the 2.
Well, one thing for LSU and Nikki Fargas, she missed a couple of games, Christy, because of COVID protocols, and she was pretty upfront about it because when we asked her, they had a good 6-game run. They were winning games. They were in every game, but the last 2 games, they've lost to Florida, lost to Texas A&M, and she thought her absence was a distraction. She didn't want to take anything away from her coaching staff, praised her coaching staff, but the flow was disrupted. You take away the head coach, you take away the voice, the person who is in charge of the program for a couple of games because of the COVID protocol. that threw LSU off a little bit. And this is a team that has had stops and starts right from the very start of the season because of COVID. Good job out of the timeout, getting the basket.
Well, Eric, I think when it comes to Nikki Fargas, it's also the moxie. I mean, her presence on the sideline. And I just remember last weekend watching that LSU game at Texas A&M as the lead dwindled, and I couldn't help but think, all right, what would Nikki do right now? And I also sympathize because I'm like, I can't imagine what she's feeling sitting at home watching her team let a lead slip away.
After the hoop by Davis, South Carolina comes up empty. Now LSU feeling good about finally stopping that South Carolina run. Pointer will head to the free throw line. Grissett picks up the personal. So as Pointer steps to the line, we can tell you about our men's basketball Wednesday doubleheader on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. Starts at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Kentucky will take on Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M hosting 11th-ranked Alabama. Alabama still with that comfortable lead in the SEC over Arkansas, and LSU trying to track down their first regular season title in 19 years. Kentucky coming off a win over Auburn yesterday. Thrilling game. That's coming up Wednesday on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. 1 of 2 for Pointer. She has 3, averaging better than 16 a game.
Well, when you look at both of these teams, free throw shooting is not necessarily a strength of either team. So, yes, they want to get to the free throw line, but especially if you're LSU, a key could be converting those consistently throughout the game.
South Carolina at 65%, LSU at 63%. Those at the bottom of the SEC. Good defense again by LSU. So they've turned things around a little bit out of that timeout as they go back to Davis.
Well, if you're an LSU fan, Albatrazi has had the habit of getting in foul trouble. So it's not like this team is not used to playing and having to compete without her on the floor.
Trazi fouling out 5 times this season again, not with the team today. And Spencer getting the start for Nikki Fargas. 5 turnovers for LSU here in the first quarter. This is a team that loves to turn over the opponents. You saw the numbers just a few minutes ago about turnovers turning into points. They turned South Carolina over 16 times in the first meeting. That led to 14 points. Bree Beal will try. Boston the offensive rebound and a second chance here in the final minute. Henderson for 3.
LSU did their job, forced the miss from Beal, but they don't box Boston out. And one of the highest percentage 3 looks in the game is off an offensive rebound, and Henderson knocked it down.
Sharna Ayers into the game. Gets called for the travel, and a turnover with the shot clock off. South Carolina will hold for a final shot. You see the numbers for Trazi, averaging 8 a game, coming off 10.6 rebound performance. She's going for double figures in the last 4 games, and you need all the help you can get in the post when you're taking on Boston and Saxton. And Meeher's into the game right now off the bench for South Carolina. Henderson comes up short, but there is Boston unmarked. She'll take advantage, and that will do it for the first quarter. Aaliyah Boston with 6 points, 6 rebounds in the first 10 minutes, and Carolina up 10.
The NCAA Women's Basketball Championship on ESPN.
Aaliyah Boston racking up the double-doubles and well on her way to another one. 6 and 6 in that first quarter, Christy.
Well, bottom line, scouting report has, she's a beast on the glass. You've got to box her out. And so far, 3 offensive rebounds, and I'm not sure she's been touched on 2 of those. LSU's got to do a better job of knowing where Boston is at all times, because she's not just a low post player. South Carolina this year especially, moving her around. You see the breakdown now. Only 24% are truly what a traditional post player has done, and that's on the block. Offensive rebounding, we're seeing that today, but she's extended her range, shooting it from 3. She can cut and move, screen on the ball action. And my favorite, though, is when Aaliyah Boston can get out in transition with the ball in her hands and go coast to coast.
Another growth area for Aaliyah, and we talked about this with Dawn Staley yesterday when we asked her about, well, who's the vocal leader on this team? Who's the one? Because they seem like a quiet group. We know Destiny Henderson's a little quiet as she's taken over the point guard spot. Aaliyah Boston seems to be someone that speaks with her actions, and Dawn didn't hesitate. She said it's Aaliyah Boston on both sides of the ball because, one, she can oversee everything. When you're 6'5", you can see the defense. You can make sure everything's organized, but you hear her more out of a timeout. If someone deviates from a plan, Aaliyah's the one that gets them back and organized. She is directing everybody, and that's a growth piece for her game. Remember, she played at such a high level as a freshman, and maybe as a sophomore now, finding her voice a little bit more.
My favorite part of that was Dawn saying, hey, I know I would be listening in a huddle, but then I'd leave the huddle and wouldn't have a clue what the coach had said. She goes, Aaliyah's that person for us that gets everybody back and on the same page. And I mean, honestly, it's so rare for a post player to have that role, and just a vital role that it is.
So that's a lesson to players. Even one of the greatest of all time, Dawn Staley, didn't listen in every huddle, or maybe it went in one ear and out the other, but you always need that teammate who's going to give you the refresher when you're walking back on the court. Ami here gets called for the travel. That's their fourth.
Well, Eric, back to Dawn. You're also talking about one of the greatest point guards of all time whose effort was off the chart. So even if Dawn might not have got everything that the coach said, she was going to make up for it by her effort on the floor.
Well, the South Carolina defense has made it really tough for an LSU offense that struggles. There's another turnover for LSU. The steal for Saxton. Just one field goal for LSU in their last 15 trips down the floor.
Well, in the first meeting, a lot of horns action from LSU, and because of the way South Carolina switched, they didn't get a lot of it. Well, today you're seeing some hard switches, getting out hedging just to make everything difficult for LSU.
That's batted away by LSU, and it'll be South Carolina basketball. Well, one person that we haven't said too much about so far is Faustina Fua, who's number 2 on the team in scoring, number 1 on the team in rebounding. This was a tough matchup for her in the first meeting because you're going up against Boston and that strong interior defense as an offensive foul is called on South Carolina. How do they try to get a Fua going here against the South Carolina team? That seems to be a tough matchup for the senior from Georgia.
Well, it starts with stops, and you see Jalen Cherry just move her feet and draw the charge on Ami here. But to your point about the loss of Trazi, I can't say this enough. Trazi had taken a lot of pressure off Faustina Fua in the half court. LSU had been moving Faustine up to the high post, and she'd been money from the high post. So now we're seeing some substitutions come in, and that moves Faustina Fua up to the high post.
Well, Afua did well as she was up high and she got the entry pass into Treasure Thompson, playing in just her 4th game. So Nikki Fargas has really reached down her bench a few times already here in the first half, bringing in players that don't usually see a lot of time. There you see Treasure from Joliet, Illinois.
Well, I mean, you have to, first of all, talk about this stretch run for LSU. Starting today, 4 straight ranked opponents to finish off the regular season. And talking to Kayla Pointer and Nikki Fargas that they are ready for the challenge. And Nikki Fargas said, this is what the SEC is about. Sometimes the SEC is harder than the NCAA tournament. So some of this also might be thinking stretch run. I've got to get some of my younger players in the rotation so they're prepared come tournament time.
That was a scrappy trip right there because they kept fighting on the offensive glass even after missing a couple of layups. Cherry's the one who cleaned it up. Cook answers back the other way.
Well, right now, South Carolina's done a great job of getting into the paint off the bounce, and that's led to high percentage looks. As we just saw Cook knock it down, Henderson's been able to knock it down as well. LSU's got to be able to contain the ball better.
Cherry on the back door, so things opening up offensively for LSU that trip. Boston out of the game for the moment for South Carolina. Saxton rolls to the basket for 2.
Eric, Nikki Fargas talked to us about why at only 5'7", Kayla Pointer usually plays the back of that 2-3 matchup. She says she gets people in the right spots. She settles us. She's our conductor. Well, now because of the substitutions, Kayla Pointer has gone to the top line. That, to me, is why we're having some breakdowns in the low area of the zone for LSU.
And offensively for LSU, trying to take advantage of the fact that Boston isn't on the floor right now. Afua finally gets her first points scoring in the paint. A foul called on Cherry for LSU. That's the second personal on Cherry. Foul trouble is something that has been an issue for LSU because the rotation has usually been pretty tight when you talk about the key players for Nikki Fargas. They can't afford too many players to rack up the fouls today. So Cherry will check out with the 2.
Well, if Pointer is kind of the conductor of this defense, to me, Jalen Cherry and Carly C are just the go-getters. Their effort, they just make life tough for opposing offenses. So that's a big loss for LSU with Cherry going to the bench.
LSU gets a hand in there to knock it away, and Pointer gets on the deck. Tie-up will keep it with South Carolina, but 6 to shoot for the Gamecocks. Eight-point South Carolina lead. Cook couldn't get it to beat the shot clock. There's Grissett on the offensive glass, and a second chance here for South Carolina. 7 offensive rebounds already for the Gamecocks.
That has led to 9 second chance points. And we already know LSU's margin of error is so slim. Down a player on the road at the number 1 team in the country, you can't give them the gimmies, these second chance opportunities, the turnovers that allow South Carolina just to really create positive momentum on offense.
Afua picks up her first personal foul, and Ami here will step to the free throw line. Thursday doubleheader on the SEC Network starts with first place South Carolina and third place Tennessee. That'll be at 7 Eastern time. And then Auburn and Mississippi State meet in Stark Vegas. Both games are here on the SEC Network in the ESPN app. We know the weather is horrible pretty much wherever you are right now, as winter weather seems to be stretching from coast to coast. That's impacted the Mississippi State game today at Ole Miss. They've moved the start time up to 2 o'clock Eastern time because of bad weather in Mississippi. And a jump ball is called. This will give it to LSU.
Carly C missed. Treasure Thompson down low, was just too eager to try to attack off the bounce. That could have been an easy 2 for LSU.
Dawn Staley keeping Aaliyah Boston on the bench for an extended stretch right here. And there's a block for Saxton. Excellent shot blocker. And Henderson, what she does so well, gets right into top gear and scores.
Well, there's top gear and there's Henderson speed. And the thing about Henderson speed, it's minimal dribbles, which makes it so hard that if you're even or behind, you're not catching her.
Afua missed the first. Lost the handle on the second. I don't know if South Carolina player got there, and here's Henderson with the push. And Henderson for 3. Inside, outside, Destiny Henderson with 5 straight points. She's into double figures now with 12, and just like that, South Carolina is on top by 14. Pointer, strong take to the basket.
And that's your senior point guard. She read the defense all the way. Henderson kind of jabbed at her to get her to pass, but she read it, took it up strong for the 2.
Ami here inside. First field goal for Ami here. .420 to go first half. Pointer will slow it down. Boston will come in next dead ball. deep three for LSU. The three-point shot is not a part of their offense. It seems like bonus whenever they make one. They're last in the conference in three-point shooting and in threes made per game, but they get one there.
I think that's definitely a shot Dawn Staley and staff will give up. You cannot give Zia Cook a look where her feet are set like that, though.
LSU will take the timeout. We'll take it as well. 3:55 to go in the second quarter. 32-18 with Destiny Henderson getting going.
Henderson coast to coast for the two. South Carolina up big.
What's up, y'all? Peter Burns, Andrea Carter coming up at half. We'll talk about LSU Tigers, a little bracketology, see if Charlie Cream likes their chances. Also, Aggies, Lady Vols, get you a preview of that one. But what are you seeing so far?
Well, both teams have 7 turnovers, but South Carolina's converting the turnovers. They've got 9 points off of LSU's turnovers. LSU's got to slow it down.
Hey, Eric, don't leave Christy hanging like you did my girl Katie George this week, all right?
Well, Peter, it was not intentional, but when I had a little technical difficulty going off the air for about 20 minutes, I thought Katie shined. I mean, it was just her audition to do play-by-play. Christy, I will not do the same thing for you. That would not be a nice Valentine's Day gift for you, so I will stay on the air with you.
Well, hats off to Katie George, because I am no Katie George, so please don't leave me high and dry.
32-18, South Carolina by 14, second quarter. What's turned here in the last couple of minutes for South Carolina to stretch this lead out to 14?
Pace. Dawn Staley said, why is LSU difficult to play against? Because they control the pace. South Carolina's been able to up their defensive intensity. They've caused some turnovers and bad shots, which has allowed them to get out in transition and score some easy points.
Henderson with 12, Cook with 9 for Dawn Staley, as they've shot 52% from the field. LSU at 33% shooting so far. They do have that one three-pointer from Shamatsi, as LSU has the possession out of the timeout, and it's knocked away. Boston back into the game, but then knocked back away by Spencer. Floater will drop in for Young.
What we're seeing from LSU is once they get past that top line of defense, because they're almost running at Pointer and the guards at times, they're getting good looks, and now you're starting to see them calm down and convert those into points. And LSU running some man now. Nikki Fargas said we've got to look to start doing that more.
Afua gets called for her second personal. LSU had done well with Boston on the bench, but then before Boston checked back in, Henderson had the layup and the three-pointer. South Carolina found a little rhythm. They've made their last 4 field goal attempts, and now Boston will step to the free throw line and shoot a couple as Afua has to go out.
Well, I think if you're an LSU fan, you mark this time and point spread down, because LSU is going to go very small now with Boston on the floor.
And lane violation called on Grissett. Free throw shooting is one thing that has to clean up a bit for South Carolina in their losses to NC State and to UConn. And we're looking big picture here. We're looking down the line as this team competes for an SEC title and a national title. 46% from the free throw line combined in those 2 games. Here's Henderson. And as we mentioned before, they're 12th in the SEC from the free throw line. Cook shut off. Grissett, that three-point threat, passes up on the 3. Everyone getting a touch, it would appear, this trip, but Saxton can't score.
Well, I mean, great ball movement, unselfish movement. I thought a couple times players gave up shots to make the extra pass when they were open. Unfortunately, South Carolina just couldn't convert.
A combined 19 turnovers between the 2 teams. The wins and losses for South Carolina, of course, the losses were against a couple of the best teams in the country, NC State and then UConn last Monday. We joked around, well, joke may be a stretch when you're talking about a loss to Connecticut with Dawn Staley, but we said the worst thing that could have happened to South Carolina in that UConn game was Arkansas having their way with UConn. UConn was a much, much different team against South Carolina than they were against Arkansas. Much better defensively. Came up with the clutch shot, of course, from Beckers late in the game. But Dawn is someone who always is looking – I don't want to say she doesn't mind losing, but she always feels like you can learn so much more from a loss than any kind of winning streak. And that was her message to the team, it seemed, this past week for this Missouri game and LSU after the UConn game.
Well, partner, I don't get to say I told you so very often.
Yes.
But you and I were texting during that game, and I said, this is the best thing that Dawn's going to enjoy about this, because now she has her team's attention for this final stretch run going into postseason play. And that's the bottom line. Winning masks bad habits sometimes, and you can get away with it. And I thought you hit it on the head. UConn's defense was so active. It made some things really difficult. But I do believe what's going to have to happen when games get tough, you got to play through Boston. Doesn't mean she has to shoot, but when Boston gets the ball in her hands, it forces defenses to make decisions, and that's when I feel like South Carolina's at their best.
Cherry back into the game with the 2 personal fouls, knocks it down to make it a 10-point game. Just the vibe and the feeling of this pace and how this game is being played right now, LSU doesn't mind it. LSU feels like they could probably hang a little tight in a game that's a bit of a rock fight right now between these two teams.
Well, from a defensive perspective, absolutely. You've held the number 1 team in the country to 34 points. The problem has been they haven't been able to keep up from a scoring perspective as Amia here shoots the gap for 2. Or
you spoke a
for
little
a
too
miss.
soon.
I did. That's
She
my
had
faith.
the steal, but not the score. And now back the other way, taking it at Boston. That won't drop down. Cook rips away the rebound in the final minute of the second quarter.
Well, and if you're a South Carolina fan, missed layups are something that you've heard Dawn Staley talk a lot about. Out of the first quarter, they were 6 of 8 on layups, and we know against South Carolina, against UConn, that was a big reason they lost that game.
There's another miss right there at close range, and a foul is called on Cook after the miss. That'll be the 3rd team foul on South Carolina, so LSU will inbound it for a final possession. Bree Beal will check back into the game. Brissett, the only one with more than 1 foul for South Carolina. She's got 2. 2 fouls for Cherry. And they have 1 on the board for Afua right now. She had left with what appeared to be 2 fouls, so that may need to get cleaned up at halftime. Down to 5. Pointer weaves through traffic. Boston's there for the block. And that comes after the horn. And Aaliyah Boston making her presence felt as she always does on both ends of the floor. 6 points, 8 rebounds, and a handful of blocks. 12-point lead for South Carolina at halftime. We turn it over to Peter and Dre in the studio.
Eastern Conference. Here's Maria Taylor.
Out.
Just about ready for the start of the second half in Columbia. Top-ranked South Carolina undefeated in the SEC at 11-0 with a 12-point lead over LSU. As we head to the third, Eric Freed, Christy Thomas-Scuddy with you as we take you through some of the highlights from the first half. 17 points in each quarter for South Carolina to have this 12-point lead at the break.
Well, consistent on offense, but the effort on defense and on the glass has been outstanding. 9 offensive rebounds in the first half, 7 steals, 6 blocks. The blocks allow them to get out in transition, and you see Destiny Henderson coast to coast. So quick, so smooth.
South Carolina was a +9 in rebounding margin in that first half, and you can see how they've turned the points off turnovers, fast break points, second chance points into an advantage here because LSU turned the ball over 11 times in the first half. Kayla Pointer had 5 points and 5 assists to go along with 2 steals for LSU, and Nikki Fargas's team down by 12. Henderson leading the way with 12 points for South Carolina. Boston 6 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks in the first half. South Carolina has the first possession of the third quarter. Sexton can't get it. Afua has the rebound. They did make
And
the
that was
correction, by the way, so Afua with 2 personal fouls in the first half. Go ahead, Christy.
I was going to say, that was just a play from the bench at the timeout where they were trying to exploit Victoria Saxton on the much smaller Kayla Pointer, but South Carolina couldn't convert.
Afua trying to post against Boston, and Boston stands her ground. Afua looking for the call. It will still be LSU ball because South Carolina stepped out of bounds.
Well, this is where if you're a FUA, you can't just try to go straight up. You got to go into Boston if you're trying to draw a foul. Only 2 free throw attempts for LSU in that first half.
Pointer. Works a little clock. Now back into Afua. Tries to take it up against Boston, and the second time Boston gets called for a foul. That's the first on Boston.
I mean, 2 offensive possessions for LSU. Both of them have gone down low to Afua. So trying to get the senior going offensively, but I think also trying to go at Boston and maybe potentially get her off the floor.
Well, when they've gone at Boston, it hasn't really worked out today because she has 5 block shots. Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC last year. Now with 59 blocks this season.
Boston has great length. She's listed at 6'5". Her wingspan is 6'10", but she's got great timing, and she doesn't try to force the blocks, Eric. She times it well, and she walls up so well. So if you're a FUA, I think you probably are better off trying to create a little space to get that shot off.
But to your point, it's tough to find space against that wingspan and that size that Boston has. Cook trying to do something off the dribble on the pull-up, and Beal gets fouled, and she'll head to the free throw line. Cherry was in the area. She was playing with 2. And it is on Cherry. That's 3 on Jalen Cherry. She had 6 points in the first half. Bree Beal will go to the free throw line. Bree very quiet offensively, did not score in the first half. As she steps to the line, we tell you that Friday Night Heights is coming up this Friday. Gymnastics doubleheader. Number 1 Florida after their win over LSU, hosting number 15 Kentucky. That's at 7 Eastern. Then Missouri in Fayetteville to take on 5th-ranked Arkansas. See it here on the SEC Network and on the ESPN app.
Well, I like the call by Nikki Fargas to leave Cherry on the floor. You're down 11. Right now, you can't afford to dig a bigger hole. Keep her on the floor. Try to get back in this game.
And it looks like they put her at the point, too, as they move Pointer off the ball. Cherry will still look for points and get points. Well, Jalen playing with a lot of confidence. Got the start against Florida, her first start since December. Good block coming from the backside by LSU, but Boston cleans it up but can't finish.
You're starting to see this mojo of LSU get going. They've had a couple of made baskets, a couple of stops defensively, and they're just so much more active now.
But then Pointer blew a tire and turned it over, and a foul called on LSU. Spencer gets the foul. That's her first.
Something
LSU
to watch from South Carolina on the half court is they are trying to exploit size versus the smaller players on the back line of that zone with seals. So watch and see if they can convert.
Henderson will try a 3. South Carolina doesn't have a field goal yet here in this third quarter. Just the Bree Beal free throw. And Cook's got it. Cook. Cherry's got to back away with the 3 fouls, and Cook takes advantage.
A missed layup on one end will lead to a layup on the other end, and so that's what Zia Cook did, just taking it coast to coast.
Boston gets another block, and then Afua fights through the second block attempt, gets the basket and the foul on Boston. Chance for a 3-point play.
Well, you have to love just the transition of South Carolina. Cook just takes it herself, goes through and by defenders for the soft touch at the rim. And then Afua has come out very aggressive on the glass and in the half court demanding the ball this second half.
That's the second personal foul on Boston. 8-point lead for South Carolina. Again, the first meeting between these two teams went to the fourth quarter. South Carolina won it by 4. So LSU trying to find a little of that magic that they had in Baton Rouge and see if they can get it over the top. Again, Charlie Cream says if LSU wins, they're a team that is then into the NCAA tournament field. Now, what a resume builder it would be if you could take down the team that's in first place and undefeated in the SEC, South Carolina, on the road.
Well, and if you followed LSU this year, you know that no game is ever over until the final horn. Down both
right.
times to Ole Miss. They fought back to force overtime and get W's. One time down 8, another time down 9 to get the wins. They were down, they were down 13 to Ole Miss the first time and 14 the second time and fought back to get W's.
That's what Bree Beal does well. Gets on the glass, gets the putback for 2, and that puts South Carolina back on top by 10. Now you have to talk about which final buzzer, the final buzzer at regulation or of overtime, because they've gone to overtime 4 times. Pointer to Afua, who hesitated against Boston, seemed to cost her Carolina ball.
Absolutely. That won't show up in the stats, but that shot was totally affected by Boston's shot blocking ability. Afua looking to see where she was and unfortunately missed the shot.
Now, most people will hesitate against Aaliyah Boston. You can't blame them. But there's been a little success here in this quarter trying to get aggressive and taking it at her.
Well, if you look at the score and look at as bad as LSU shot from the field in the first half, if they can just keep South Carolina to first shots, they probably have the lead right now. Second chance opportunities for South Carolina is the difference in this game.
First points of the second half for Destiny Henderson. She has 14, Cook with 13. Boston has 6, all in the first quarter. Pointer won't drop, and Boston's got the rebound. That's her 10th. And a foul called as they look for Beal in the paint. Jalen Cherry picks up her 4th personal foul. So that's costly. Cherry will have to head to the bench now with the 4. She scored 8 points on 4 of 7 shooting.
Well, I said someone for LSU had to step up, and to this point in the game, it's been Jalen Cherry, so a huge loss for LSU with her going to the bench.
Deep 3 from Cook. Afua with the rebound, and a foul called on South Carolina. Saxton gets the call. That's her 2nd. So 2 on Saxton, 2 on Boston, 2 on Grissett for South Carolina. 4 on Cherry, and 2 on Afua. LSU will slow things down with Davis. First of now 3 games you'll see on the SEC network here today. Mississippi State and Ole Miss is now a postponement because of the bad weather in Mississippi. So that game won't be played today. Coming up after us, it's Georgia and Mizzou. And then at 6 Eastern time, Alabama and Auburn will meet. Tennessee and Texas A&M going head-to-head over on ESPN later today. A foul called there will send LSU to the free throw line. When we come back from this timeout, it's been even here in the third quarter. 12-point lead for South Carolina, trying to stay undefeated in the SEC. Look at our historical hidden figures in SEC women's basketball. First black women to make their debuts for teams around the SEC. LSU's Jeanette Baptiste Boutte, who back in 1975 was not just a hoop player for LSU, but also a volleyball player for LSU in her playing days in the mid-'70s.
Why settle for one sport? Jeanette
That's
ranks
right.
4th on the LSU career rebounds list. And it's amazing, though, when you think about just stepping onto campus and just playing the game and making your presence felt. And that's what this woman did. She still ranks 7th all-time single-season rebounding list. And so just like we've got great rebounders today, Jeanette Boutte was probably way ahead of her time in terms of owning the glass from the basketball perspective. I'm sure she was great at volleyball as well.
Had to be play 2 sports. 4:54 to go here in quarter 3. This is where we were at halftime. 12-point game. South Carolina used a 12-0 run in the first quarter to go on top 12-4. They led by 10 after 1. Pretty even in that second quarter. Nikki Fargas's team just trying to stay as tight as possible here. Cherry's on the bench with 4 fouls. Trozzi not available today. And Young at the free throw line.
Well, with Cherry going to the bench, Young's the one who I think has to give Pointer and Faustina Fua offensive support. To this point in the half, it's been Cherry and Faustina Fua with the point production in this third quarter.
So Young now with 4. Averaging better than 9 points a game. Went for 20 in the signature win this season for LSU when they knocked off 7th-ranked Texas A&M on January 14th. Foul here on LSU. Still A&M's only loss, 65-61. A&M taking on Tennessee today. Aggies have won 6 in a row. Tennessee in 3rd place in the SEC with that 6-2 record. And your sources tell you that Renaya Davis is expected to be back for the Lady Vols today after she missed the Kentucky game.
My source is as reliable as it comes. Miss Carolyn Peck did confirm that we would be seeing Renaya Davis in all her glory here.
Not supposed to give up your sources, but I didn't really have to work it out of you there.
My bad, Carolyn.
The foul was on Davis. A couple of free throws for Henderson, back to a 12-point lead. Destiny now with 16 points, came in averaging better than 11 a game. Davis. Pointer. That won't drop. An easy rebound for Boston. That's 11 rebounds now for Leah Boston. Cook.
LSU's gone man the last couple of possessions. The problem has been they haven't been able to contain the dribble penetration of South Carolina.
Kayla Pointer did well, but Cook fighting after her own miss. Can't get it to drop, and here come the Tigers. Dominique Davis will slow things down. That's batted back out and tipped across half court, and it will be South Carolina basketball.
Young just a little laissez-faire there with trying to track down that long rebound. Instead of grabbing it with 2 hands, try to bat at it. Unfortunately, goes out of bounds.
Well, so far, South Carolina has scored 43 points. They're second in the conference, averaging 81 points a game. So LSU has done what they can defensively to frustrate, slow down, and kind of keep South Carolina in check here. But the problem is LSU can't afford to fall back by too much more because they struggle to score. And when you look at the scoreboard and you're down by 14, that looks a little bit bigger if you're an LSU team that's averaging just under 60 points a game.
Well, I think LSU's at their best offensively, one when they're not setting illegal screens as they turn the ball over there. But when they can convert turnovers by their opponents into easy scoring points, when they can get rebounds off of misses and scoring transition, nowhere near as successful when they become a half-court oriented offensive executing team. And that's what South Carolina, because they've scored early, especially in the first half, they put pressure on LSU to have to score in the half court.
Well, LSU breaks it down by two very important colors to LSU in their tradition, purple and gold, right? Nikki Fargas says, if we're in mode purple, we slow things down, and that's kind of like from the Pat Summitt school. Everybody get a post touch, reversals, moving it around, working the shot clock. Gold, they're going quick, and we've seen them try to do it a couple times, but right now they can't find an answer for Aaliyah Boston, who has another double-double, 10 points, 11 rebounds. That's her 10th this year, 23rd of her career. And right now, South Carolina is forcing LSU in just a purple mode. Half-court game, and they get another three-pointer as that rattles in.
Well, if you're going to beat the #1 team in the country, you got to do things that you're normally not accustomed to doing, and that's been the three ball here this afternoon. But the one thing, if you're going to beat the #1 team, you've got to shut down Aaliyah Boston. And she has been a beast in the paint, and she has owned the offensive glass. And LSU is staying in this game. Just drive into the paint, pull help side, kicks it out for Shamatza to hit the three.
She was 0 for 8 from the three-point line in the games leading up to today. But she's 2 for 2 today, so it's helped keep LSU within shouting distance, but then Saxton at the free throw line.
Hey, Negative Nancy, that just means she was due today, and she is showing up and knocking them down.
Well, I mean, I'm just the facts here, Christy. She hit 8 threes in her first 3 games. She was 0 for 8 since. She's 2 for 2 since that 0 for 8. Is that better? Are you happy?
That's
Negative
awesome.
Nancy.
There's your Valentine spirit.
You have no Valentine spirit. That's a Fua fighting inside for 2. So she was very quiet for a long stretch of time in that first half, but making up for lost time. 9 points, 7 coming here in the third quarter. Henderson for Beal. Boston and Afua fighting. Boston with the feed to Beal, but then stripped by Pointer. But it will remain with South Carolina. 1:33 to go in the third.
The officials are letting Boston and Afua go at one another down low. I love it. Just really physical with one another.
Grissett for Boston shows the range.
And that's the versatility. Banging down low, she steps out, Afua stays in, open for that 17-foot jumper.
She will take it out, of course, outside the three-point line, but that mid-range game, pretty impressive as well. 15-point lead for South Carolina. Well, if LSU could convert half of the layups they missed, this would be a much different story, as Cook has it blocked out of bounds.
It starts because Henderson gets 2 feet in the paint off a dribble penetration. Boston just floats out to the perimeter wide open for that look.
"12 points, 12 rebounds, 5 blocks for Aaliyah Boston, who has picked up 2 SEC Player of the Week honors so far this season. Henderson's had the hot hand and keeps it going for the Gamecocks. 19 points now for Henderson.
Well, you wonder if her off performance against UConn is what really gets Henderson going into this latter part of the season. Had 8 turnovers against UConn, follows it up with 11 points against Mizzou, and then just been on fire here this afternoon.
Henderson gets called for the...
Henderson just steps right in for that handoff for the 3.
So that's the 3. Henderson did turn the ball over, her second turnover. She had 1 turnover against Mizzou, and you mentioned the UConn game. She had 8 turnovers in that game, so taking good care of the ball in the 2 games since.
But I'll protect Henderson on that last turnover. That was the outlet person's fault, who should have read the defender.
That's tipped out of bounds. 4 to shoot here for LSU. Denise Brooks for a moment pausing things here. I think Dawn Staley was looking for an explanation. It will be LSU basketball with 4 on the shot clock. Henderson's got it. And a timeout called from the bench. I could hear Dawn Staley yelling for the timeout. Was it Grissett who was down in the corner? She seems to be okay. So we'll take the break as well. South Carolina will draw up a final play for the third quarter, on top by 16. A reminder, coming up Wednesday, men's basketball doubleheader on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. Starts at 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Scottie Pippen Jr. and Vandy taking on Kentucky. Wildcats coming off that win over Auburn yesterday by 2. Then Texas A&M will host 11th-ranked Alabama. It's here on the SEC Network and also on the ESPN app. So 6.2 seconds to go in the quarter. Normally, you would not see a team call a timeout in that situation, but you've been watching a lot of tape, and you've noticed something maybe for South Carolina here recently with Dawn Staley and taking timeouts late in quarters.
Yeah, with games that even they've been in control, I've noticed like end of the quarter, end of the half, she's called timeouts, and I've got to believe it's time and score. It's teaching these situations so that if South Carolina needs this late in a game, they're prepared to do it. Because you can run these in practice, but Eric, it's never the same. Your scout team or your own team, they know what you're trying to run. So I love this teaching opportunity by Dawn Staley right now. And this is not to say that this game is over with by any means, but she's taking opportunities to make sure she's preparing her team for March.
Charlie Cream has South Carolina as one of the 4 number 1 seeds with UConn, Louisville, and NC State. Of course, NC State and Louisville losing games this weekend. Here we go, final seconds. Knocked away by LSU with 2.7 to go.
I would
Henderson.
go sit somebody on Boston on the front right now if they're looking to lob it in there.
Henderson looks for Cook instead. She'll have to heave it and comes up short. So South Carolina didn't get what they wanted out of that timeout, obviously, but they got plenty out of that quarter, stretching it out to a 16-point lead, heading to the 4th in Columbia. Been a good day scoring for Destiny Henderson, the junior from Fort Myers, setting the tone for South Carolina with a game-high 19 points.
Well, she's been effortless and efficient. 7 of 10 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. She's taken what the defense has given her. She's played under control, and she hasn't been sped up one time. And that's when I think Destiny Henderson's at her best. We know how fast she is, but her fast is faster than a normal person's fast. So as long as she stays under control, this offense really works.
I'm trying to piece that together. Her fast is faster than a normal person's fast. So that's a triple fast right there for Destiny Henderson. So she's fast to the third power. That's the kind of speed we're talking about here. And that's with the ball in her hand, by the way. So her fast is faster than my fast without the basketball.
You know, I just remember like Allen Iverson. People always said he was faster with the ball in his hands. And I feel like Destiny Henderson's very comparable to that. And usually the ball's not in your hands. And that's why defenses don't have a chance to catch her if they're not already turned around, shoulders square to her in terms of transition defense, because she'll just pick you apart.
So it's just not the number 3 that makes you draw that comparison to Allen Iverson. It's the speed in the game, too. That's good. I like it.
You're just
somehow, if Dawn
historical
Staley,
knowledge.
if Dawn gets word that you made the reference to Allen Iverson, she'll have that Philadelphia pride smile watching back this telecast, or if somebody fills her in. I think that would be a pretty good target for her point guard to try to emulate. And Dawn's sweatshirt today, the John Lewis Tribute Good Trouble hoodie. She always finds new ways to, well, pre-COVID, it was always a fashion statement. But now in the COVID era, like she's got, even her hoodie game is great.
Fashion statement by making a statement.
That's it. I like it. Pointer hangs in the air. That won't drop down. Well, Dan Foran's been crunching the numbers about LSU when they get into the paint and they get close to the basket. It has not been pretty for the Tigers here today when it comes to finishing.
5 of 19, and we're talking about just layups in this game. Shooting 26% on layups. It's very difficult to beat the number 1 team in the country when you're shooting that way at point-blank range. And some of the credit also goes to Boston. 6 blocks by Aaliyah Boston here this afternoon.
Henderson uses the Boston screen, can't get it, and knocked it out of bounds by Grissett. It'll be LSU basketball. Well, South Carolina a minute into the fourth quarter on top by 16. They get the stop, and here they come back the other way. And that's last touch by LSU as Cook was on the push. Me here will come back into the basketball game.
I was going to say, it's a great effort by Pointer. Missed the layup, but sprints back in transition to help her team get solid by knocking it out.
Me here. Nice little double pump. No. Saved by Shimatsi. And it will stay on this end with South Carolina.
Eric, at first glance, I thought that went off of Boston's foot. But the officials are saying South Carolina ball.
Well, we've seen a couple times now the soft hands of Aaliyah Boston coming through. A couple of passes that looked too tough to handle. She stuck with it, gained possession, just couldn't score that time, but a foul called on LSU. Afua has her third.
Well, South Carolina is only shooting 40% from the field. Coming into today's game, they've been shooting 65%. And so it's been off on the first chance, but credit their prowess on the offensive glass. To this point in the game, 17 offensive rebounds.
And they are a plus 17 in rebounding margin as Ami here hits. Plus 17 is their season average, by the way. That's good for third in the nation. So they are not going to lose the battle on the boards often, if at all, and they have not lost that battle this year. Substitutions, you can see for LSU as C and Spencer check out. Cherry's back on the floor with her 4 personal fouls.
And South Carolina, as they often do with Lily Grissett's in the game, just some full court pressure, and LSU turns it over.
Boston was ready for it at half court, so she gets the steal. She continues to fill up multiple columns on her stat sheet. Entry to Ami here. Works on Afua. That won't drop. That's Zia Cook fighting for the putback. That won't go. And Cherry comes away. Pointer on the cut. This one drops.
Great movement without the ball in her hands. Kayla Pointer, and gets the two points to fall.
Ami here in trouble, and we'll turn it over. 13 turnovers now for South Carolina. Hasn't been perfect for the Gamecocks here today. LSU will have a hand in that again. LSU hangs their head on defense. Shimatsi. Back for Cherry. Afua, that's Ami here with that reach, getting in there to knock it away.
Afua started that possession getting into the body of Ami here for the positioning, but then she let it go a little bit, and that's how Ami here came around to deflect the ball.
Destiny Littleton into the game for South Carolina. She has it after the Henderson steal, 2-on-1 with Grissett. And that's Pointer again hustling back on defense. We had a chance to talk to Kayla before this game. I liked it when you were talking about the defense with her. And, you know, there may be times where she doesn't know what's happening on defense. She's the one in charge keeping everybody together. But if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing and what defense you're in, just play hard. That's what she does. If, like, okay, I look around, what are we in right now? One thing I can control is my effort. And she's done that pretty consistently during her 4-year career in Baton Rouge.
Well, she's just been a fun young lady to cover. You could see the talent even as a freshman, but you've seen her grow into that point guard position, making such better decisions, especially here this senior year. And I love what Dawn Staley had to say about her. She's like a running back with an offensive line. She just probes and waits for the hole to open and then just attacks you. And I loved the compliments that Dawn shared towards Kayla Pointer, the respect for a point guard and the way she's developed her game and the way she runs her team.
Considering Dawn's been game planning for her for 4 years now, very familiar with her game. As Boston checks out, entry pass to Grissett. Tries to dribble away from Pointer in that trouble, but Pointer is there to knock it away. Cherry, high off the window. You said it earlier, Christy. She's playing with a ton of confidence right now for LSU.
Well, Cherry came in today only averaging 2 points a game. With that bucket, 14 already this afternoon.
Her career and season high is 17. 6 straight points for LSU to bring it down to 12.
Well, Lily Grissett may have made a 3 against Mizzou, but LSU is just playing off of her, daring her to shoot right now from the outside to pack it in down low.
Saxton cleans it up for the Gamecocks. Well, you see Boston and Cook and Beal all out of the game right now. Dawn Staley has talked about trying to get the bench a little bit more time. Henderson lost the handle into the hands of Ami here, who will go to the free throw line to shoot 2. You know, when you add it up, Christy, and you compare where South Carolina is at Valentine's Day 2021 compared to where Staley's team was a year ago, they've played 7 fewer games, and that's consistent throughout the country. Some teams have played a lot fewer than at this point last year, but when we talked to her about, well, where is this team right now, I think she look more to the bench, that you're missing out on those games where you would get bench players in and get them valuable time, right?
Absolutely. I mean, she said, if you think about SEC play, there's never an easy game. There's never a night off. And definitely not having the traditional non-conference season when you can try to develop that bench. She said, yeah, we're 7 games behind in terms of our bench production, in terms of their experience. But she also even brought up Destiny Henderson in terms of a new role. She said, you know, it's just taken some time for her to truly be the person who has to be that person directing everyone, because as we've said time and time again this season, it's been a brand new role for Destiny Henderson, even though she's played a lot of minutes coming into the year.
Cherry looking to drive again, was fouled by Littleton before the drive. So now South Carolina will get one of their starters back into the game. Bree Beal will check back in. Henderson and Saxton have remained on the floor from the original starting 5, and Saxton's going to get called for the foul.
Eric, between
like she
the
just
January
got tangled up.
Well, between the January 24th game and today's game, 4 times has a guard gone to set a cross screen for a post player that the guards got knocked over. That's the first time the officials have made the call.
So you've been keeping track.
Hey, I got to protect the littles. When they go in there and they get steamrolled, I'm going to give them some love.
Henderson gets called for the foul. That's her first. And here is Kayla Pointer. At a season high 27 against Florida last time. 5th in the conference in assists, 11th in scoring. And the struggle at the free throw line at 58%.
Eric, did you hear
Saxton.
the crowd start cheering loudly with that second miss? I have a feeling that means the free chicken sandwiches for the fans in the stands with the 2 free throw misses.
There's Pointer getting back behind the South Carolina defense for 2. Well, once again, LSU within 12. We're going to need multiple stops here down the stretch, convert on the other end, make it interesting like it was in Baton Rouge in the fourth quarter 3 weeks ago. Beal can't hit, but there's a me here on the offensive glass, and she's fouled. So another offensive rebound for South Carolina. That gives them 19 offensive rebounds here today. They have dominated on the glass as they normally do, and it's helped the Gamecocks to a 12-point lead in the fourth. Timeout in Columbia.
She is the reason that I stand here today as the second black woman to win a national championship. So her inspiration for all of us has been all over the game of women's basketball. Her impact is far and wide, not just for her contributions to women's basketball on the sideline, but what she does for so many of us as she broadcasts our games, as she talks about the very fabric of our women's basketball sport. She's always saying some cutting edge things that make people really think about women's basketball in a different light.
And great comments from Don Staley. But Nikki Fargas also said, Carolyn Peck has been a beacon of light for so many of us. Her presence is felt every time she walks in a room. Peck's commitment to be a guardian of the game has attributed to the success and recognition of all women in sports. She continues to create pathways to motivate and uplift all of whom she touches. And it just goes back to show you everyone needs representation, and you can't say it enough about 7 black women's coaches in the SEC. And I have to give a little bit of a tribute to the first, Bernadette Lockett at Kentucky, our own Carolyn Peck at Florida, and Pokey Chapman at LSU.
And well represented, as you saw, by those currently head coaches in the SEC. I know we've been talking about the historical hidden figures in the SEC. Carolyn Peck is not hiding. You can hear her coming a mile away. you know when she's in the room. You know when she's on the air. So, and I just say that because I know Carolyn's watching right now. So, just whenever you can get a little dig in, you take the shot. That's batted away. Last touched by LSU. It'll be South Carolina basketball. 4:14 to go in the fourth. South Carolina's been unable just to get real, total, comfortable separation from LSU. Their largest lead, 18. Right now it's 13.
Well, and because of pace of play of LSU, this is like must-stop territory for them. They've got to be able to get a stop defensively and convert offensively to try to get this under single digits before 3 minutes to go.
Saxton forced it into Beal. And there's a stop for LSU. Cherry's had the hot hand. Not this time. Beal. And that's going to be a foul on a me here. Cherry drew the contact. Remember, Cherry's been playing with 4 fouls. Picked up that 4th foul in the third quarter.
Well, if you're watching film on Jalen Cherry, you have to be ready for this. Me here looking back at the ball, not looking ahead. Cherry just gets in the path to draw the foul.
Pointer across half court with 3.5 to go in the fourth. That's going to be one thing for LSU here too, Christy. They are not going to get a lot of three-point shots to drop if they're going to come back in this game. It's just not part of their offense. They just don't have three-point shooters.
Well, and that's why I was wondering if that's why Ayers is in right now for that three-point opportunity, trying to, just put the three up instead of the two. But unfortunately, you've got to make it fall. And now on the defensive end, you have to get a stop.
Well, they get it. It goes right through the legs of Beal. Another turnover for South Carolina. That's 17 now for the Gamecocks. Afua will try the deep two and get it. Double-double for Afua. She's got 11 and 11. And it's an 11-point game. Timeout called by South Carolina. So Carolina will take the timeout. Start of a busy day here on the SEC Network. Again, not as busy as we first thought because Ole Miss and Mississippi State postponed today because of the bad weather down in Mississippi. But our game coming up next when we're done here on the SEC Network, Georgia at Mizzou. Georgia's won back-to-back games, and Q Morrison has been a big reason why they've won those last two games.
And Q Morrison's a Georgia kid who loves her home state, decided to come and play in her home state, and most importantly, she is finally healthy this senior year. She's always been a defensive stopper for the Lady Bulldogs, but she's improved so much offensively this year. This is the first time in her career that she has had 4 straight double-figure scoring games.
And the first time she's been healthy in a long time. So as we like to say, we're seeing the true Q right now as you take a look at Charlie Cream's bracketology. LSU, first 4 outs, 8 teams in right now. It's going to be a real fight over these last 2 weeks of the regular season. Regular season schedule and 2 weeks from today, by the way. So it is rapidly approaching. Georgia-Mizzou matchup will be interesting, too, because Georgia, number 1 scoring defense in the SEC, 3rd in field goal percentage defense, and we know how efficient Mizzou can be, number 1 in the SEC in field goal percentage at just under 50%.
Well, and Mizzou went into Athens last year and beat UGA. I think it's really, in my opinion, going to be a battle down low. Jenna Stady against the much quicker Deja Williams. Can Mizzou force Stady out, and that creates driving lanes for Asia Blackwell to get to the rim.
Anaya Russell, the only freshman on this roster, hit the free throw, and then she's the one who fouled Sherry, but nice gesture by Russell to hustle over after Cherry hit the deck pretty hard, hit the basket support hard as well. So a couple of free throws coming up for Jalen Cherry. Later on tonight on the SEC Network, Alabama looks to get back on the winning track as they take on Auburn. Alabama's lost 4 in a row. Their last win was against Auburn, so Tide been struggling lately. Tennessee and A&M on the schedule today over on ESPN 3 Eastern Time. A&M has won 6 in a row. We talk about 2 weeks from today. Plenty of good games to go between now and then, but on the 28th of February, Texas A&M will be taking on South Carolina. That will be at Reed Arena down in Texas. Loose ball, tie up, possession arrow, Carolina with 2:13 to go. Yeah, the schedule is interesting here for South Carolina. They're at Tennessee Thursday, ranked team. Kentucky at home next Sunday, ranked team. Ole Miss, much improved team on February 25th, and then that matchup at A&M.
Nothing's a gimme by any means for the Gamecocks down the stretch. But, I think if you're looking at glass half full, you're going to get tested and you're going to be tournament ready come SEC tournament time.
Russell's going to get called for the travel as she made the drive, and it looks like Cherry, well, it's not Cherry actually, is it Pointer who's down back off the baseline? Oh, yeah. Kayla, that right leg buckled, and she also took a shot to the face as well, and I don't know what is in more pain. Watch her leg twist awkwardly right there, but also it's the shot to the face as Russell was on the drive. Got called for the foul. Yeah, it's more the face than anything else for Kayla.
Very tough young lady. Unfortunate, she just gets clocked there, inadvertent all the way. But I love what Kayla Pointer had to say coming into this game. She said, it's always a grind in the SEC. It's tough to the finish, but we're so looking forward to playing the best team in the country. And that just shows you the kind of competitive young lady that LSU has leading their team.
Well, I'll say this about Kayla Pointer. When her professional career is done, she's either going to be a coach or a broadcaster. She'll have her choice because she talks like a coach. She had a lot of great insights. Obviously, she's played a lot of minutes for Nikki Fargas through the years, including this year. She leads the SEC in minutes played, but she'll have to come out right now. And they are at the monitor to see if a foul should be called here or if it's just inadvertent. I think they're saying that the ball made contact and not the player. Inside of 2 to play. Well, South Carolina will give up the top spot in the AP poll after the loss last Monday to UConn. New poll comes out tomorrow, so UConn will be number 1. And frankly, UConn, barring a major and monumental upset, will be the number 1 team in the country into the NCAA tournament. They've got Big East opponents on the schedule right now. They struggled against Georgetown last time out, but it's really going to have to take a major upset, maybe from a DePaul or a Marquette, against UConn in the regular season or into the Big East tournament. But you'd have to look at UConn as moving into the number 1 spot and being in that spot come tournament time. And back to what you talked about at the top of the telecast, I mean, South Carolina may be number 1 in the poll right now, but they care about being a number 1 team when it comes to seeding in the NCAA tournament. And with so many games for South Carolina remaining against ranked teams, I'm interested to see how that plays out for Charlie Cream as he breaks down bracketology in the next several weeks. We showed you the schedule for South Carolina, 3 ranked opponents remaining in the regular season, and they're going to bump into ranked opponents in the SEC tournament in Greenville. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out over the last couple of weeks of the regular season and into the postseason. South Carolina trying to burn some clock right now, up by 9. Not going to be a blowout win by any stretch, but Carolina's been in control here as Russell, the freshman, gets fouled on the drive.
Well, I think if you're LSU, you have to take some pride from the fact you were down a starter. You were undermatched size-wise the entire game. Jalen Cherry's a huge bright spot with her 15 points. So there's some positives to move forward as they go into a very difficult stretch of games to end the regular season. All ranked opponents remain.
At Kentucky Thursday, then they host Arkansas next Sunday. This is the first of 3 straight against ranked opponents. Afua can't catch up to it, and it's out of bounds. 10-point game, final minute in Columbia. Leah Boston with the big numbers today, 12 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 block shots. Destiny Henderson, the leading scorer for South Carolina with 19. And Aaliyah getting the assist to Lily Grissett. And a timeout called. Under a minute to play. So this will be 31 consecutive wins for South Carolina against SEC teams. Set to improve to 17-2 overall and 12-0 in the SEC. And as Christy just touched upon, this will be 3 straight losses for LSU as they get ready for another road game this week at Kentucky on Thursday.
I mean, it's crazy now, Eric, to think that we are basically halfway through February with just 3, sometimes 4 SEC games remaining for these teams, and that, I mean, March is upon us.
Well, out of the Carolina timeout, they turned it over. It'll be an interesting film session for Dawn Staley. There's things to work on in losses, as she mentioned after the UConn game, and you can get better fast, but there I think that look tells you the story, that there are things out of this win that she'll have to point out to her team.
Well, the execution hasn't been on point, I'd say, especially these last 4 minutes. And that's something that you can definitely harp on. You know, for LSU, you wonder if they'd just been able to box out what kind of game we might have at this point, because the second chance points 23-5 in this game for South Carolina.
And LSU been hanging right at that minus 17 in rebounding margin pretty much throughout the second half. That's where they are right now. Terry Young makes the first. So she's gone for a combined 22 points in the 2 games against South Carolina. And a reach-in foul called on LSU will send Bree Beal to the free throw line. 42.4 to go. One thing you know, LSU is not going to stop making it tough on you, not stop playing defense.
Well, I know LSU was
for the
trying
full
to go.
40.
Well, I know LSU was going for the steal there, but if you have to foul someone, Bree Beal's the one you want. Only shooting 57% on the season from the charity stripe.
And 1 for 2 today. Batted into the hands of Cherry. Cherry for 2 more. And a timeout called by LSU. So Cherry now with 17. That matches her career high. Good game for the senior who delivers, and that makes it a 7-point game with 33.5 to go. Let's take you through the afternoon for Jalen Cherry.
I can't say this enough, though. Jalen Cherry came into today averaging 2 points a game. The confidence just soared each and every time she saw the ball go through the hole. She did it off the bounce. High degree of difficulty sometimes getting to the rim, but the pull-up has also been so smooth for her this afternoon.
7 of 12 from the field for Cherry, also with 5 rebounds and an assist. And remember, she was battling foul trouble too. Picked up her 4th foul in the 3rd quarter, so she's shook that off to lead LSU in scoring. Pointer, who came into the game their leading scorer at better than 16 points a game, has been held to 11 today. And Kayla is going to stay on the sidelines after taking the shot to the face here, as it is now a full timeout. So they'll take a seat as LSU is going to grind it out here with 33 seconds to go.
Well, I
Dawn
also wonder
Staley
if
trying to get her reserve players. You can see Russell's in the game and a couple of players staying out there, with this game getting a little bit tighter here in the final minute.
Well, I also have to believe Nikki Fargas called the timeout on defense to get some of her players off the floor. You've got Cherry with 4 fouls, Afua with 4 fouls, Spencer hopefully trying to do a little offense-defense substitution because they're going to go for that steal and try to foul quick. Oh, but what do you know? None of those were substitutions.
Sounded
That's
really
why Nikki
good, though.
gets
You
paid the
sold
big
it.
bucks and I don't.
You sold it, though. I liked it. So it's South Carolina basketball with 33.5 to go. Beal.
Oh, so South
Saxton.
Carolina called timeout after LSU to advance the ball.
Well, there's another deflection by LSU, and Henderson in big trouble, and LSU takes it over, and Cherry knocks it down. Beal's got it in the corner, and does she get tied up? She gets tied up, and the possession arrow gives it to South Carolina. Well, LSU now down 5.
Well, we said it's never over until it's over when it comes to the Tigers, and they are fighting, scratching, and clawing Great pull-up jumper there by Cherry, not to take it too deep and get the 2.
South Carolina's out of timeouts. All of a sudden, that becomes a factor in a me here in the backcourt. To Beal, up to Russell. That's the one you'd want to foul, right? A freshman on the floor here in the final minutes who's a 56% free throw shooter. And Cherry delivers again, a career-high 19 points for Jalen. She has fouled out, but she gave pretty much all she could in her 23 minutes today. This game looked like it was well in hand for South Carolina. They were up by 18, 54-36. But they've been outscored here in the fourth quarter by LSU, 21-10.
Eric, I just have to comment on the foul by Jalen Cherry. I've seen so many players in this situation not foul when they have 4 points because they're like, I need to stay on the floor. I think that just really shows how selfless Jalen Cherry is that, hey, time and score here. I'm the closest. I need to stop the clock, so I'm going to commit that 5th foul.
I'll give credit to Anaya Russell. The freshman calmly steps up and delivers at the free throw line. So she's got 4 for 6 from the line this afternoon for Russell, playing her in the 4th, and LSU will call the timeout. That's their final timeout. Comes with 15.5 to go. We will get you to Columbia, Missouri, right when we're done in Columbia, South Carolina. Georgia, 24th ranked team in the country, taking on Mizzou. This one going a little bit longer than we expected about 10 minutes ago, as LSU, not surprisingly, fighting the full 40 minutes. And now a 3-possession game with South Carolina on top, 66-59. South Carolina never got to the point where Dawn Staley brought Aaliyah Boston back into the game. She's kept Boston on the bench here, trying to let players like Russell figure things out here down the stretch.
Well, I think not just Russell, probably more importantly, Ami here. You saw her a moment ago handling the ball against the full court pressure. You just can't amplify these kind of things in practice. So great for Dawn to have the confidence in her reserve players to finish this out. But if I'm LSU right now, the big question is, are you going to go for a quick 3 or are you going to go for the high percentage 2? Based on the way they've shot layups today, I would go for the quick 3 and hope that if it doesn't go in, you get the offensive rebound put back very quickly to try to extend this game.
LSU is 2 for 8 from outside the three-point line. Those 2 3-pointers made by Shamatzi. She's number 14, defended by Bree Beal, who's just about the best on-ball defender for South Carolina. Shamatzi does get a look, though, and Beal was there to get a piece of it. Ami here rips it away, and that will do it. Well, LSU made South Carolina work right to the final horn, but in the end, South Carolina stays undefeated in the SEC, 12-0 with a 66-59 win over LSU. For Christy Thomas-Scuddy and our crew, I'm Eric Freed. Thank you for joining us. Time to get you to Como, Georgia, Missouri.